And I forgot my headphones. 1 sec. God damn it. Okay, and it looks like we're live.
Sweet.
I forgot my headphones. All right, let's see here. All right, a lot better.
Sound better now?
Sounds a lot better, actually.
Sweet.
So, so this is my first show, and this is Aaron Wolf, the Wolf Man, the inker for Doc Salem.
How's it going?
All right, let's see here. Wow, this is weird, dude. All right, I'll see what's going on. Okay, that's a lot better. Okay, dude, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me too?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're good.
Sweet.
So, yeah, dude. So let's talk some shit.
Sweet, man. So this is actually the first time we're ever getting to, in case people don't know, like we've talked online before, but like this is the first time we're actually getting to talk to each other.
So you're a way better host than I am. Yeah, I actually suck. Dude.
So what?
So we met on Facebook. Like I had a piece up. What was it? Mumra, right?
Mumra, yeah, it was a Mumra sketch, and it had both forms, like when he's the mummy, and then the giant, like hulking evil Mumra in the background too.
Yeah, and that's where we met at because you bought that, and I was like, God, somebody really wants to buy this garbage.
No, I love comics and pop culture villains, and I was at that point like I had my own place, and I had basically like a whole Decepticon / villain theme thing going, and I was looking through your stuff one day, and I liked the page, and then like it came up in my feed like just a couple days later. I saw that Mumra, and I was like, sweet, and I had just got paid, so I was like, I'm buying that.
Dude, you got an epic Megatron collection. Just so that if people don't know, like his collection is insane. Like he's got all the third-party versions of Megatron. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, man. I think it's safe to say, like I probably don't have to say it, but like Megatron is by far probably my favorite villain.
Well, what I was envious of was the Dinobots that you have. Like he's also got a crazy collection of Dinobots. Like I got some Dinobots, but he's got the pinnacle version of all that kind of crap.
I got some sweet Dinobots, but I'm lacking something that you actually have though. Like I still don't have a Grimlock. Like the leader is the one thing I'm missing, and you got like the big supersized Grimlock, man, which I want one of those too.
Yeah, well, that was my favorite. Like when I seen that one, I was like, all right, what do we have to do to get this? Like, is there going to be sexual favors? What's got to happen here? Thank God there was no sexual favors that were asked. So,
yeah, at this point, man, I might have to do something on the slide to get a Grimlock, and then just zip it up about it.
And just forget about it. Like drink your troubles away afterwards.
Yeah, forget about it. Use medication to deal with everything. Just be like, I forgot all about that, but I still have my Grimlock.
Dude, I use medication to deal with things now.
Well, I bet getting this whole Doc Salem thing together has caused you to use some, man. Like you're turning out a bunch of pages, and we got the Indiegogo thing up and everything, man. You've been working hard on this, dude.
Dude, I really wanted this to happen. The Doc Salem project, and for the most part, it is happening. Like, I mean, we're kind of stalled out at the moment, but you know, it's also a flexi goal. So the only thing that'll happen is, like, if we don't reach our goal, is well, you don't get paid. and I don't get paid either, but but the book gets made,
We're not doing it for the money, and we can keep saying that and meaning it because we love comic books. And then finally, one day when we make money, we can talk about what bullshit this was not making any money.
Yeah, I know, right? This is the biggest garbage. But also the colorist doesn't make money either. So there's a lot of people not making any money if this thing doesn't get its goal.
That's understandable, I guess. But you know what? I don't think it's super in danger of like not, getting fans or not getting a look because this character that you came up with is really cool looking, man. He's like the premise behind him is very cool. Like, how did you come up with, the twist of who he is?
I it's a combination of video games, um, movies, and drugs, but mainly not hardcore drugs or anything like not heroin or anything like that, but stupid shit. But no, I come up with stuff while I'm working on other things, right? So I'll be working on something, and all of a sudden I'll be thinking, it'd be cool. And then that's how everything starts with that one sentence. You know what I'm saying?
You know, it would be
It's
cool.
like it's like hold my beer. That's my version of hold my beer.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, I mean, and to be honest, I was working on like I really love Golden Age heroes and stuff like that. And I
Mhm.
think that's one thing that we're missing in modern comics because I stopped collecting modern comics because they're they're too weird. You know what I'm saying? Like the art is bad. Like they put on these great covers, and then you open a book and you're just like, "What the hell is this?" Like somebody that shouldn't even be in the indie circuit is doing a mainstream book, and
I've seen stuff along those lines, and I've thought to myself, it seems like sometimes. Does it ever seem this way to you? Some of the hardest working people in comics right now, professional comics, are colorists because there's just so much to make up for.
dude, you're not wrong actually. And colorists are asking as much as a penciler, like as far as pay, and I have to agree with them because lazy now, dude. They're like, well, the colorist will put in those muscle tones, or the colorist will, put in a background or something. And you're absolutely right. Like colorists are working really, really hard, and the pencilers, and well, I don't even think there's any inkers around anymore, to be honest.
I think
Um,
most people do things digitally now. Like I see so much stuff, and don't get me wrong, I'm not. I think it's just a different tool. You know what I mean? Like I'm not slamming anybody's medium, but I've tried it before, and it feels like a barrier kind of between me and the art. Like I'm much more traditional in the way I like to do stuff, just like ink and paper.
no, I'm the same way. Like when I was doing digital, it was obvious I was doing digital. I'm saying like
The
the
look of it
lines
is
are way too smooth. The characters, like I would duplicate panels all the time because I was like, why draw it when I could just duplicate it? You know what I'm saying, but it
yeah,
was it was retarded, dude. Like I can't go back to digital because one, I'm OCD. So if you give me a magnifying glass and I can zoom in on a character's nose or its eyeball and I can spend 3 hours on that, I'm gonna do it. And then I'm not gonna pay attention to the rest of the book. You see what I'm saying? So it's gonna suck. And I got proof of that too. I got a book that's called Invasion Eyes. That never got published because it was so bad. But they yeah, dude, like I can't. And now I got to be honest. Now that I went back to doing traditional, I make a lot more money off of traditional art, and doing pages. I'm a lot quicker doing pages than I was doing digital. You know, and that's just a fact. The only bad part is I got to get an anchor.
that's not the bad part for me because that's being me, which is pretty fucking cool. Pretty
Well,
fucking.
yeah, actually, that's probably the best part about doing things traditional. And I'm like I said, I'm not knocking digital for people who do good digital work. That's fantastic. Because you can get your pages out and all that kind of crap within a timely manner. And you're cutting out the part where you have to scan everything in and shit like that. But like traditional, we're actually bringing back the art market for comics and all kinds of stuff like that. Like there's no art market with digital work. You see what I'm saying? Like you're not going to be able to buy pages from your favorite book because they don't exist. They exist digitally.
Right. Everybody can print them out. Like me printing it out is basically like having the original.
Yeah. Well, you're actually what you have is an original piece of work. Every time you ink a page of Doc Salem, you have an original page. Because you're the inker. You're making that. But and me too. Like there's actually 2 pieces of original work for every page of Doc Salem.
Yeah, I guess that is pretty cool because instead of like me just inking over your pencils, your original pencil still exists, and then the original ink that I did exists, which is
Yep.
kind of separates them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And both of us can both sign the work, and it's legit work. You see what I'm saying? Like it's not like we're printing it out and signing a copy of a copy of a copy. So that's one thing that's really good about doing traditional. Chalk one up from traditional.
That's right, man. Ink to the page. I think he's a real cool looking character too. Like Doc just has his outfit is very cool. Like it's got kind of like a really old school comics kind of look to it, but he's also like the way you draw him. It's kind of like 2 throwbacks in different eras. It's kind of like the art style is almost like kind of like a 80s 90s kind of comic art style, but then his outfit is kind of like a like older, more classic comic look. Like it's a very cool, very specific look, and I think he's very original.
I don't take any superheroes serious unless they have a lightning bolt on them. Like you got to have a lightning bolt to be taken serious in the comic market. You know what I'm saying? Look, Adam Warlock. Yeah.
That puts the good heroes down to just a very few, man. You got to look for the lightning bolt.
Shazam. Huh?
Yep.
All right. So, yeah. So that's how you know Doc Salem is a great hero because he's got a lightning bolt.
And the belt that it's on is like a wrestling championship size belt. So
that's about it.
That's telling you that he's got the 1, 2, 3 count on a lot of fucking monsters.
Yep. Have you ever worked in a comics market before? I know you used to do tattoos, right? Like you used to be a tattoo guy?
I used to be a tattoo artist. I had my own shop, Werewolf Tattoo, and I am a much better artist than I am a businessman. And I had a lot of fun tattooing, but I really just love, like after a time doing it, I did it for over a decade, and I actually became pretty good at it. But after a while, it was just like, I just kind of wanted to return to more traditional art, and I got kind of sick of having people in my face all the time. So it's just kind of like, I like to draw on something. I like to come back to drawing on something that doesn't move, it doesn't bleed, it doesn't bitch. You know what I mean? It's like paper just sits there and is like, I'm here for you. Just cover me in ink.
How many misspelled names did you do while you was tattooing? Did you have them verify their name before you went ahead and tattooed it on them, or was it?
I did. Like I would draw up letters, and I would actually make them like look at it. You know what I mean? Like look at it 3 times. Make sure it's spelled right because it's going on your ass. But
I got a story. All right, go ahead.
No, I only ever misspelled one name, and I had been tattooing for, I guess, maybe about 8 months, like 8 or 9 months. It was shy of a year, and I was so proud of my letters, and there was this like thing of flowers in the background of the name, and there was like a banner wrapping around it and all this stuff, and I was like, man, I'm so proud of this. And like I put it all on her, and I did these color fades and stuff, and she went to the mirror, and she just kept staring at this one part, and she just kept staring, and she got this like look on her face, and I was like, man, so what do you think? Do you love it? And she's like, you spelled my daughter's name wrong. I was mortified. I was like, I had you look at the stencil. You got to be kidding me. And it turns out I had actually spelled the name right when I drew it. And then when I put it on her and the A that I drew smeared, and it looked like an E, and I made an
Dude.
E on her. Yeah.
Holy crap, dude.
I fixed it after the tattoo healed, but man, I felt bad for like a long time.
Did you give her a discount? Like, hey, here's $10 off and we'll call
Yeah.
it even?
Yeah, I totally did.
I got a story for you. So
Right.
I'm an airbrush guy besides doing all of this stuff, right? And I think we kind of travel within the same circles as far as like bikers and shit like that, you know?
Definitely.
So I was dealing with this old biker. His name was Taz, and he owned a tattoo shop hooked onto his Harley shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I used to listen to his stories. Like he was one of those one percenters. And he goes, I got a story for you. I was like, what you got? He goes, they had a girl come into my shop with her mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was 14 and she wanted her boyfriend's name on her thigh, right? Like 12 inches tall, like wide. And like this was serious, right? She was like, he's like, don't do that. That's a horrible mistake. And she goes, but I love him. And her mother's sitting there
comes
and she's
into it.
yeah, her mother had to sign off on it because I don't think you guys can touch them unless their mothers like give you approval or something like that, right?
If they're under the age of 18, I think the youngest you can be to get one is like 16. And yeah, for 16 and 17, at least in this area in Maryland, you got to get parental approval.
Well, in Louisiana, I think they just do it anyway. But they got her mother to sign off on it. And her mother's and they talked to her mom. They were like, look, lady, don't let your daughter do this. Like, this is terrible. You know? And she's like, well, she wants it, you know, so I'm giving her what she wants, you know. So they did it, and they did a 12-inch name on her thigh, right? You know, I don't know what his name, like Dexter or some stupid shit like that, right? And, yeah. So a week later, she comes back crying and begging him to take it off of her because the whole time, like, he was cheating on her, you know. And they're like, remember the conversation we had with you about not being able to remove it and it being permanent?
People don't get that part. Like, it's not, man, I can't tell you how many times I did names on people. And I'm just like, I know you're going to eventually get this covered up. Like, I hope you come back and spend that money with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a lot more money covering it up than I am putting it on you.
Well, from what I understand, there's a rule in your area. Well, any tattoos is, you know, like don't get anybody's name on you but your kids. Or your parents.
There you go. No matter how much you love somebody, like you don't know, you know what I mean? You never know what's going to happen or what's already happening that you don't know about. So yeah, getting some chick's name, just not a good idea.
And also, there's the 30-day curse. Whenever you get your wife's name put on you, or girlfriend, you know, like you've got to know about that, right? Like 30 days later, like they're getting it taken off because they broke up, they're divorced.
Yeah, the 30-day rule I have heard of. Like, I know I did it on my ex-wife, like her best friend and her husband when they got married. She was trying to convince him not to get her name on him, you know what I mean? And like they had only been married for, I think it was like a couple months or something like that. And she begged and pled with him, and like I put it on him because that's what he wanted. And they're actually still together. But I thought like the whole time I was doing it, I was like, she is like got a good head on her shoulders, and you are a complete dumbass, and she's gonna drop you eventually. And like she hasn't yet though. She's still with that dumbass. So he got lucky.
That's awesome. Yeah, usually, like, I remember my boss went to the French Quarter and got drunk. This is a while back when I used to work for somebody. And he comes back with his girlfriend's name on him, you know? And
shit.
So he got it right on his heart, right? Because he's like, you're the love of my life. And this is where your name will go. So you'll always be close to my heart. And about a month later, he got back with his ex-wife, and he had a big deer put on his chest where her name used to
be. Oh, shit. Yeah,
Yep.
man, that's hilarious because like it seems like something that most chicks will not tolerate. It's like as soon as you get the shirt off and like you're with them for a while, they're like, "Who the fuck is Denise, motherfucker?" Denise was my girlfriend in high school. And all was like, I'm not gonna be with you if I gotta look at fucking Denise every time you take your shirt off, motherfucker.
That's
So
awesome. That's so true,
yeah,
though, dude.
and then it's like that dude is like going to the tattoo parlor, like, what can I get really big to cover this up that's not gonna cost me that much?
Hello, Mr. Wolf. Can you That's awesome, dude. Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah. I got a ton of stories like that though. Like one time some guy, so he wanted a tattoo on his wooden leg, but nobody would do it because you can't do that. So he came to me, so I'd airbrush something on his wooden leg to look like a tattoo. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. It was stupid. It was so stupid. Dude, I've gotten some ridiculous requests to do do airbrushing, dude. Like a toilet seat.
What did you airbrush on the toilet seat?
Oh, just some skulls. Yeah. It's stupid stuff. Yeah. Like, but I've noticed one thing, like one thing I never did get into t-shirts because I've learned early on that it's not how good you are, but it's what you paint on. You know what I'm saying? Like tattoo artists make a ton of money because they do their artwork on a human. And whenever
That's
I
true
do,
comparatively. Yeah, comparatively to what other artists usually get the shaft as far as, a lot of types of art. Yeah, so tattoo artists actually do better than a lot of types of artists.
yeah, well, like if somebody comes to me with a t-shirt and they want a portrait on it, the most I can charge them is $70, 50 or $70, somewhere in between
Mhm.
there. But if somebody comes to me with a $90,000 car and they're like, put a portrait on it, I can charge $100 an hour to go ahead and do that. You see what I'm saying? So t-shirts were never the game I want to play with airbrushing. No. And somehow I got wrangled into doing comics. And there's
Was that like your idea or somebody else's idea that suggested? And you're like,
it was mine because I've always wanted to do comics since I was a little kid, right? So, and then like the comic industry comes to an abrupt halt. Like it's starting to it starts to eat itself away. With all this political crap and all this kind of stuff involved in it. I So we're actually coming in at kind of a good time and kind of a bad time because there's a revolution going on in the industry and we're just kind of stuck in it. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't fall on the side of everybody like pushing politics because that's not what I want to do. And
I don't think that's what comic books are about. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like I think realism in comics is cool, and including a lot of stuff from real life and real life experience adds an unalienable, genuine element to what you do. However, I think that comic books largely were based on escapism when they first started. You know what I mean?
well, I think that's always been what comics were about, like all up into the '90s and the early 2000s. But then somehow it got twisted. Like comic books have always been like done social commentary. You see what I'm saying? But
Right,
they've
and you can
never,
weave it into your story. You know what I mean? Like you can
yeah,
actually weave it into your story and use examples that don't have to be super political. You can actually get your point across, but do it within a well-told story.
yeah, and that's kind of what we did with Doc Salem. Like Doc Salem, the newest pages that you're working on are going into the commentary that we're making on the current industry and the current like what's going on with society. But it's not like you shouldn't use it as a soapbox. And I don't think Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, I don't think they ever had that in mind to go ahead and use comics as a political soapbox. Like it was always commentary. Even when they were doing the Green Arrows, not Jack Kirby, but there was I think it was Neil Adams and them when Neil Adams was working on Green Arrow and Green Lantern and stuff like that, and they were doing when Speedy had a drug addiction, right? It was a commentary on what was going on in society at the time. Like now, it's not. Like now, people have lost their minds. but it's good in a way. Like, we're locked out of the industry because we don't want to play that game. We don't want to get on a soapbox and say you should do this, you know. But we're on the other side, you know, where we're saying this is a book, we like it, and you won't have to deal with your life for like the next 30 minutes to an hour. You know? So
Right,
there you
exactly.
go.
This is good, solid escapism at its finest, and it will entertain you, and that's what it's supposed to do.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's I like that. You know what I'm saying? I really like that.
Me too, and I kind of feel like art, the point of art, and comics are definitely an art form, and the point of art isn't to push
Now
your viewpoint so hard on somebody that it's crushing them. It's like it's basically to craft something that gets people's attention, makes them, like plucks at their mind, makes them wonder, entertains them, and at the same time gets your point across.
yes. And I was at a show in Texas, and I was meeting with a bunch of companies, like showing them my portfolio and
Mhm.
trying to get a job, like doing comics work, like doing pages. And I knew the page rate was low because the current page rate is almost non-existent. But I was like, maybe I can get in, do something well known, and get some tables or a fan base or something like that. And I was told by the submissions editor, because they had a submissions editor there, and he was so I started talking to him. He was like, "You got some really nice work." I was like, "Thanks, I appreciate that." And he goes, and so I said, "Yeah, I just want to do comics. Like, I just want to draw comics. I don't want to get involved in any type of political situation or anything like that." I said, I just want to sit behind my desk and put out books." And he goes, "Whether you want to make a choice, whether you want to be involved or not, you will be, if you want to work in this industry." So, and I walked away saying, "Yeah, whatever, dude." But he was right. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was absolutely right. Like, if you want to work, you have to make a choice. The problem is never made the choice that he probably wanted me to make. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I'm not gonna like do that. I'm not gonna sacrifice, you know, my morals to go ahead and do some pages for a company that doesn't really give a shit in the first place. But yeah.
I think that might be one of the reasons why that so many people, like you'll see people that do indie comics that, and they're producing their own stuff and they're doing Kickstarters, or you get one every couple of years because that's when they can afford to print them. And it's like you can look at their stuff and be like, this is entertaining, but I understand why that this person isn't working for a big company,
Yeah.
And then you look at other stuff and you're like, this these people are putting it together on their own dime too, and this so far surpasses what so many quote unquote big companies are putting out. It's like there are people that are more talented than some of the people working professionally in the comic book industry, and they choose to do stuff on their own so they can do it their own way, and they don't have to compromise. And I think that's a cool way to actually get this off the ground. You know what I mean? Like, do it
Yeah.
exactly how you want to, and flat up the flagpole and see who salutes it.
Well, I got to be honest. Like, Doc Salem and me and you were both like deeply embedded into like Comicsgate. Like, we're part of that. And I got to be honest. Like, I'm really glad that we are, because from what I'm saying, like, it's the next comics revolution. Like, they had like Image Comics in the '90s, and Image was this assortment of different styles and everything like that. And they broke away from like Marvel and DC, where Marvel and DC at first you had to have a house style and stuff like that. Um, the difference between now and then is that everybody that's doing something for Comicsgate right now isn't trying to duplicate Marvel or DC. You see what I'm saying? Like, when Rob
Yep.
Liefeld started his company, at least, well, all of the Image guys, they had at least one version of Wolverine within their company. You see what
Yeah,
I'm
they
saying?
all. You could look at the front of the book and tell either what book they had drawn before or what
Yep.
their favorite Marvel team was. Like everybody, you could basically look right at them and tell what they were based on.
I mean, Cyberforce, like Mark Silvestri's Cyberforce, was an almost a it was almost a carbon copy of X-Men. You know, the book that he
Mhm.
was working on for, you know, I mean, you had Ripclaw.
Yeah, there were.
Come
Yeah,
on, dude.
everybody had. You're right. Everybody had their own Wolverine. Everybody had their version of Wolverine, and like Rob Liefeld had his own version of the Thing, and his own version of Iron
Yep.
Man. And
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy, dude. The only people that didn't do that with original image were I I know you're going to say that he did, but I still think Jim Valentino wasn't trying to like rip off Wolverine with Shadowhawk. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think, despite the similarities, some of the similarities, like of the headpiece and the claws, I
yeah,
think Valentino was trying to do something more more along the lines of Daredevil than Wolverine. You know what I mean? Like
yes,
he
yeah.
was trying to do something different.
And then you had Spawn and Savage Dragon. But that's the only characters I could say, like when they started Image, were like not trying to be Marvel. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
If,
and even as far as Spawn went, I remember my friends like the story was totally different. It was not like a Marvel type story, but his look, we used to call him Bat Spider Man.
yeah. Well, you remember, like Marvel actually like tried to rip off Spawn, right? Like they had a character that looked exactly like Spawn, like after Spawn came out, because they're like, "Fuck him,
I
that's what
think
we want."
Stephen Butler might have drawn that guy.
I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Steven's a cool guy too. I met him a couple of times.
that
Kind of
guy is
piece of
so
shit.
talented. He's got the most perfect marriage in his style of like old school Marvel, but then like super hyper detailed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like his artwork is awesome.
Steven's amazing. Like I had him. He worked on the Scarlet Spider books, and I have
Yeah,
the two issues where the Scarlet Spider first came into Marvel, and like their key issues. And I brought him to Steven from the Sonnet, and he drew Spider Man on both of the issues. Well, he drew Venom on one and Spider Man on the other. Yeah. So I was like, "That's fucking cool, dude." And he signed off on it.
that's
But
awesome.
yeah, dude, like, and that's one thing I can say about like what we're doing with Comicsgate. Like with Comicsgate, you got Shinobi Sasquatch. You know what I'm saying? And that shit is insane, dude. You got a werewolf like Sasquatch, and he's a ninja. That's nuts, dude. I think he
That
was
is
doing
some
some drugs when he
crazy.
came up with that.
Yeah, that is some crazy shit. Some crazy shit.
But yeah, dude. So everything's original, and I really like that. I like being part of a group that's trying to make like original stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like, and I think Doc Salem doesn't fall within any of the current characters that are being like that are in Marvel or DC right now, or even Image or anything like that. I think he's completely original.
No, I
So
think he is original, and I think, like I said, the look is cool. The world that he inhabits and that he's going to interact with is really cool. And I'm entertained by it. Like when you sent me the first couple pages, like looking at the first artwork for him and the like the first sketch of him and his creepy little sidekick.
yeah,
Just
well, I
like
changed his sidekick a little bit because the sidekick wasn't working for me. He looked too creepy.
he really did. And I noticed in this issue, I was like, is his outfit better now? I was like, I'm not feeling that being creeped out like I was before. Then I went back and looked, and I was like, sweet.
yeah, and that's another thing too is we're going to have toys like Doc Salem toys coming pretty soon. They're at the sculptor right now. So, well,
That is awesome.
just Doc Salem right now is being modeled up. So it's going to be after this campaign. We're going to decide if we're going to introduce the Doc Salem action figure. Um, but yeah, dude, this one it's been kind of hard to get off the ground, but I think it's going to work. Like we still got a ton of time left, so we still got 40 days. So a lot can happen within 40 days.
Definitely. And
Like
I'm not going to stop inking pages, man. Like we're going to get this thing finished, and it's going to be like when people get this in their hands, man, they're going to be super jacked about it.
yeah, and that's another thing too. Like Wolf, if you want to go take out a loan and maybe finance the rest of the project, like I'm not against that, dude. I'm not against that at all. Like I'm actually encouraging you to go do
Look at my face, man. Do you think they're going to give me a loan? Look at this.
all everybody knows that bald guys have a ton of money hidden away in their mattress.
That's what rubs my hair off at night.
Where am I going to put this money?
Yeah, it's like, I've run out of places to put it. That's that's why I do sound systems and hang TVs during the day because I got money falling out my ass.
What? You see, that's crazy that you gave up your tattoo shop to go hang TVs and do sound systems.
Dude, I know it is.
Every
but
tattooed artist I know make a ton of money, dude. Like that's what I'm. Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. When I started my business, we had just moved to West Virginia, which was not what I wanted to do, but I was married at the time, and it's like you gotta compromise, and that's what I thought I was doing. And so I moved someplace I didn't really feel like moving. And while I was tattooing where we were living, I worked for some people that were just like, they would hire people like not in the busy season, but like they would hire new people in the slow season.
Yeah.
Things would get really tight. So I had been there for a little while. I saw their pattern and I thought to myself, I was like, this place, like maybe about a mile from where I live, came, available for rent. And I was like, you know what? This neighborhood that we just moved into, this place, like this kind of like within, I'd say like 45 minutes, where the area that I live in, the tri-state area, you can be from Pennsylvania, go through Pennsylvania, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia. It's like within 45 minutes or less, you're within 4 states.
Yeah.
And pretty much all the little towns around here have at least one tattoo shop or more. And this neighborhood that I moved into, like this area, I was like looking all around it and stuff, and I was like, there is not really this little area, this little burg is not represented by a tattoo shop. And then I saw this area this little place that came up for rent, and I was like, you know what? And it was about to turn fall, and I was like, it's about to get really slow, and I'm going to starve through the winter working at this shop. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to starve through the winter, I'm going to do it under my own fucking banner. You know what I mean? I'm going to do it under my own flag, and I'm going to do it how I want to do it. And maybe if I make it crazy, and because my last name is Wolf and I love monster movies and all that kind of stuff and horror pop culture, I called it Werewolf Tattoo, and I got some cool light up signs with big skulls and shit. And
that's insane, dude. Did you keep
it was
signs?
cool. And what?
Did you keep the signs?
Yeah. I did keep the signs when we closed, but I mean, it was cool for a while, and then like we ended up putting a lot of work in there. We actually were doing pretty good, making good money, and then the owner springs on us. He's like, you know what? I'm going to sell this building, and I'm going to start showing it if you don't mind. And I was like, well, I'm not the owner, so I can't really stop you. So he showed it, and the most horrific thing happened. Like this family of accountants. It's a father and 2 brothers, accountants. I swear, I shit you not. Everybody's watched The Simpsons. Everybody knows who Ned Flanders is.
No.
Imagine 3 fucking guys that are Ned Flanders. They bought my shop, and they were like, oh, don't worry, we're going to keep you on as a tenant. And I was like, okay, cool. And like about a month before my year lease was up, they called me to their office, and they were like, actually, we like your shop, and we want to make it our new offices, so you're going to have to be out by the end of the month. And I'm like, holy shit, I can't even believe it. And because of basically the way my lease was structured, like we ended up, I had to find another place real quick, and we were not even in that shop for like a whole year. It was like a couple weeks shy of a year.
Jesus Christ.
So I'd say about like 25 minutes, a half hour away, there was a shop that had just closed that I used to work at. And I knew, I was like, I just put all this money into this one to remodel it. I don't really have money to do that again. So I know this other place, even though it's closed up and I know it's going to need some work, like it's already set up like a tattoo shop. So I can probably go in there with about less than half the budget I used on this place, and I can make it work. And we did. But in this town, like things had kind of changed. When I had worked there before, it was the only tattoo shop in town. And when I went back and opened my shop up there, I was one of 3.
Oh.
And yeah, and it was like there's a racetrack there, like the Charlestown racetrack and everything. There are two little towns, Charlestown and Ranson, together. And I was like, and the racetrack always brought in a lot of people, and we would do well there, you know. And basically, it just wasn't like that anymore. And you know, like eventually, I got farther and farther behind on the rent. I mean, I love art and I loved tattooing at the time, and you know, it just wasn't money wise. It just didn't work out. You know, I made some good decisions art wise, but I made some bad decisions business wise. So, like I said, I enjoy going back to the to just the white page that lets me do whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about a monetary exchange.
I get that. I mean, yeah, when people see you doing good in a certain area, they like they mob it. You know what I'm saying? So there's a ton of like that's probably what happened. They were like, well, this dude can draw and do tattoos. I can do the same thing. I need a shop.
People used to come in a lot. People that would just buy. There was a head shop actually. I forget the name of it, but there was a head shop that started selling really inexpensive tattoo equipment to the general public. Like they just sold it next to their bongs and their pipes and stuff like that. It was almost kind of like, hey, why don't you guys get together in your garage, get high, and tattoo your friends?
Yeah, that doesn't sound safe at all.
Definitely not. And like people started coming in with like really fucked up shitty tattoos that their friends that had no experience had done on them. And like people were coming in that had just bought tattoo machines wanting me to tune them for them or teach them how to tattoo or teach them how to tune them. Like it was a crazy town to be in, man. It was crazy.
So speaking about doing tattoos out of your house, when I was a kid, so I was like I think I was 11 or 12 years old, right? I lived out in Mississippi, and me and my friends. Let me tell you something. If you want to get your kid, like really screw your kid up, move them out to the country. There's absolutely nothing for them to do up there except for smoke weed and do really dumb shit, right?
Yeah.
So we got loaded, and one of my buddies, like his uncle was in jail or something like that, and he started telling him about, yeah, we used to make tattoo machines out of a spoon and an electric motor and a guitar string, right?
Spoon.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So we did it, right? And they were like, well, Preston, you can draw. So I used the tattoo machine. You know, we got some Indian ink and we're pouring it in the this like pen contraption that, you know, fed into the into the needle. Yeah. So I'm tattooing this guy, one of my buddies, this guy Booger. Yeah, his name was Booger. Yeah. his name was Booger.
Booger with a homemade machine.
Exactly. Oh, it was nuts, dude. We were fucked up, right? So yeah, his name was Booger because, you know, of course he picked his nose and he liked to do stupid shit, but he was huge. He was a big guy. Like he was 6 feet. And this is like as a teenager, he was 6 feet and was built like a truck. And so I'm doing a skull and a top hat, you know, on his arm, right? I'm tattooing it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, dude, this looks amazing. You know, I was like, well, thanks, dude. You know, you're probably gonna have to go get a tetanus shot afterwards, but it's fine.
You've got Hep C, but you'll love the tattoo.
Yeah. So we're doing it so long. We had the motor plugged into the wall, right, with this little adapter. Well, the adapter melted, right? So so that was the end of my tattoo career right there. But
Did you get to finish the skull and top hat before
it got finished enough, you know, but the deal was, now here's the thing though, like Booger goes back to his house, you know, and his mom gives him so much shit overnight, right, that he gets a razor and carves it off of his arm. Yeah. So I show up at his house the next day and I'm like, dude, let me see what it looks like, you know, the day after. And he pulls his shirt up and it's just this big fucking scab, right? Because he used the straight razor and carved it all off. And his mom was proud of him that he did that because she was like, you don't want your body all marked up. And now he's got like a 5-inch by 5-inch scar that's going to be on his shoulder for the rest of his life. Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Home tattoo removal at a discount.
Fun in the country is what I like to call it.
You know, when I was a little kid, we lived way out in the country, and I've always said that, like, I'm really glad that we moved into fucking civilization before I became a teenager, because I would have either had like the only couple girls in that little country community pregnant, or I would have become a serial killer. So I'm actually
Oh my God, dude.
that like civilization, like we moved to civilization.
Well, here's another story, Preston's days in the country. They had one of our buddies, his dad. We used to always watch him riding around on a four-wheeler, right? He'd ride around, from up and down the street, go on people's land, do whatever. And I was like, why does he do that? I was like, and they're like, well, he's a drug dealer. I was like, okay, but why is he going on other people's land like that? You know what I'm saying? And then they're like, well,
Selling them drugs.
well, no, he wasn't. No, this dude was smart, right? Like he had it down, right? Like so anyway, the what's the drug enforcement aid? The DEA, right? The DEA had this rule at the time that was like, if they find drugs on your land, they confiscate the land, right? So he would go on other people's property and grow his pot and shit like that. Harvest it, go home, dry it out, and go ahead and sell it to whoever he was selling it to. So yeah, dude.
That is some true crime right there, man. And that guy's a genius.
I'm probably gonna have the country mafia after me.
Because you're telling their stories.
Yeah, stop giving away our secrets. Yeah,
His names have been changed to save Preston's life.
Yeah, like in another, I can't tell all the stories now, but the next one I got to tell you the story about how a bunch of my buddies went and robbed the church, right? And me and a couple of my other buddies actually stumbled upon it. We were walking up and down the road like at 1 a.m, you know.
You can't tell the story, man. Like, God is on the internet too. Like God might be watching this podcast or whatever.
Well, which God are we talking about? Are we talking about the YouTube gods? Are we talking about the Twitter gods or the Facebook gods?
The one that had the church that you were fucking robbed.
Whoa. Just so that we're clear, I did not rob anybody. It was not me. Friends of mine. Really not that good of friends either. Like really not friends at all.
They were friends of my cousin's brother.
Yeah.
I didn't know him that well.
We're acquaintances at most. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It was nuts. Like, I can tell you this right now. I had more fun in the country and got in more trouble than when I lived in the city. Like when I moved back to the city, in like the New Orleans, dude, like you didn't want to get in trouble because there was so much shit to do. I'm saying, like, there was comic book shops that you walk to a comic book shop, dude. Like our nearest neighbor was 5 miles away in the country, because we lived on 120 some odd acres of land. So yeah, it was nuts, dude. It was crazy. Like if you want to go out to the movie, you can go out to the movie. If you want to go hang with friends, you could, because their house was like right next door. The country, completely different. Like all you did was get together with your buddies, like get high,
do dumb shit.
Yeah, get into your buddy's mom's liquor cabinet and just start taking away, until you throw up and your buddy has to go turn you over on your side so you don't puke, like choke on your own puke. And
been drinking since 4 this afternoon. There ain't nothing else to do.
Oh, when times really got bad, huff gas. Anybody got weed? No. Liquor? No. Petrol? Let's go hit the lawnmower.
That guy that did the cut scenes in between the Dukes of Hazzard, like when you would hear him when bad show happened, he'd cut to commercial, be like, "Oh, it looks like it might be the end for Preston and his friends."
It's pretty much like that, dude. It was almost like, and then there was parts of the country where it was like the hills have eyes. Like you obviously knew, like you go into a town and there's this, everybody looks exactly alike. Like some crooked shit's been going on down here, right? Like this.
You guys have been fucking your cousins for a long time, haven't you?
This is not a rich bloodline. So yeah, dude, it was nuts, dude. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I don't hang around with a lot of those guys anymore because a lot of them got arrested, and doing dumb shit.
Understandable.
Like they didn't grow up. Like they still stayed where they were at, like in that mindset. Yeah.
I think I could see being staying the same person and not changing too much. Like if I still lived out in the country, man, like where I used to live, we didn't have as much acreage as you're talking about, but like there wasn't anything. It was in like rural Virginia, and there wasn't anything around. So I can see, yeah, I think like moving to the city, moving to civilization, when you can get your hands on more stuff and you're connected to more stuff and more people, like it's easier to figure out who you are.
Well, that and there's another thing too. Like when I was growing up out there, I was like, what do these people do for money? Because there's nothing. Like there's nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like my buddy's mom worked at a truck stop as a waitress. You know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy. I was like, and then like after a while, I realized like your only options were work a farm, go like you have to become a journeyman or something like that, and like go bricklay. It was nuts, dude. But you
Grow
couldn't just
weed
go
on
get
other
a
people's
job.
property.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you couldn't go get a job like at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Because you just couldn't. There was no McDonald's close enough around. You could go and get a job there. Like it was nuts, dude. And any type of art career, you can bury that. It's just not gonna happen.
You'd be
You know?
painting fences. That's what you would fucking paint. Fences.
Exactly. Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, it was
You
some
said
shit.
this was Mississippi?
Mississippi. Yeah, Picayune, Mill Creek. Yeah, I lived in a bunch of different parts of it, but it was nuts, dude. It was, and like now, like I tell people, I will never go back to any. I like seeing people, even though I'm kind of an introvert. Like, but I just can't do that. Like be be away like that. Like I got to be around civilization. So it's crazy.
Yeah, man, I'm too much of a like I'm too addicted to like movies and comic books and dumb shit that you can't get out in the middle of the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
I need to be close to all that shit or the places where I can get it.
yeah. And don't think you're going to get Wi-Fi service.
Out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, or especially cell service. I mean,
Yeah, or talk to anybody on your phone ever.
yeah, you have to like drive to the nearest mountain to go and get service. It's crazy, dude. Yeah, I'm just glad I'm not there anymore.
I gotta call my girl. I gotta drive for about a half hour.
Yeah. It's nuts, dude. Like you got to have a landline. You have to. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Yeah. Well,
You're
all right,
looking
Mr.
for like,
Wolf.
somebody's windmill will stand near to try to get your signal better. It's like
Yeah.
is there any metal in
Oh,
this
I
thing?
got it. Oh, it was nuts, dude. We had a blast, though. Like we had a blast, but it was also like something you never want to repeat again. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy.
It's like I had a great time that once.
Yeah, and no cops. That was another thing too. There was never any cops. Like if you're gonna call the police, you give them at least 24 hours notice. Because it's going to take them that long to get down to where you're at. I remember there was a car wreck, and the guy's head went through the steering wheel. Like his yeah, this was an old truck, so the steering wheels were huge on these things, but still, he definitely got a concussion. Let's put it that way. So
At least.
so long for the paramedics to get there, they died while they were waiting. Yeah. But in their defense, it did take them like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get down there, to go ahead and get this guy because he went into the creek or some shit like that, and his head went straight through the steering wheel, and his neck was broken, he was fucked, But for an hour and some odd minutes, dude, he was like in pain and he just died a horrible death, because nobody could get to him.
That's terrible. And if he lived in town, maybe he would have gotten in that horrible accident in front of the fucking emergency room where they could have helped him.
Or maybe he wouldn't have swerved off the road to miss that dog or that possum or whatever.
There's a whole family of possums.
Oh, dude, so many stories I got from that song, dude. Yeah, but I'm gonna save them. But you know what?
Definitely.
This will conclude the first Bastich of YouTube.
Well, this was cool, man. This was pretty cool. My first experience with this was all right.
All right, sweet. That's good. Mine too, by the way, on this end.
That's
So,
sweet.
yeah, I think this went well, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, man, this was pretty cool. And anytime you want to talk about the doc, you know what I mean, or talk about like girls with a third nipple, whatever, man.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I got to introduce that character, by the way. That's all right, dude. Well, I'll tell you what, let's wrap this up. I got to get pages to get done, and I know for a fact you got pages to get done. So,
I ain't gonna gotta do.
I'll talk to you later. You take
All right,
it
man.
easy.
Later.